Hello people of the internet, it's Amanda, and the day that I've been waiting for finally arrived. Kurosagi's pilot already aired and have so many things to say about it. Now, if you're new here on my channel, I'm a huge King and Prince fan as well as Hirano Sho, and I was pretty excited at the prospect of him doing a dark hero as a change from his previous goody two-shoes types of roles. And this is really something that I've been looking forward to. I've made several videos about it already, about the previews and teasers and stuff like that. And this one is just pretty exciting for me in general, I would say. I even watched a 2006 version, which I also did a video for, which I'll be putting a link to down in the description below. But I'll try as much as possible not to reference that one or talk about that one while I'm doing these reviews for the rest of the series, simply because as I said in my previous videos, I want to treat these two dramas separately, since they said that this Kurosagi isn't exactly a sequel, a prequel, or like a reboot, but rather more of like the completed version that references the manga more, or the original work more. So let's just treat it as that. But I still may try to insert some comparisons here and there, or maybe if we're talking about specifics from those two adaptations, then maybe I might do that. But again, for the intents and purposes of these reviews, I'll just focus on this series itself. So yeah. Series starts with this explanation that there are types of swindlers called shirosagi, white swindler, the ones who manipulate people for money, and then there are akasagi, who manipulate people using emotions, love, romance, that type of thing. And then there's kurosagi, the one in the world who tries to stop these two, or tries to swindle these other types of swindlers. And that's basically the premise of the drama. Kurosaki Koshiro's character, played by Hirano Sho, is the kurosagi who tries to swindle the swindlers in the storyline. And his backstory as to why he's doing what he's doing, why he's this type of like dark hero in the narrative, is also laid out in the pilot episode. The story immediately sets its tone with the police trying to chase after this person that they're looking for, and then they end up in that scene where they're actually face to face with a shirosagi who just got swindled by Kurosaki. Now that shift in the scene where there's a misdirection happening, they think that they already saw the person that they're looking for, but then Kurosaki actually slipped right into them wearing a different disguise, which was very interesting, to be fair, with the choice of blonde hair and also colored contacts. Another interesting thing about that particular opening sequence was that Kurosaki immediately bumps into Tsurara, who was really nice and helpful, and Tsurara, played by Kuroshima Yuina, is gonna be Kurosaki's sort of like love interest in this entire story. Now, it will be quite interesting how they're going to play off the romance part, because as I mentioned in my previous videos, the idea for these two characters is it's not your typical love story where it's just going to be a love-hate type of thing, but the foundation of these two characters is that Kurosaki is doing something for revenge because of his family, and that's why he ended up as a Kurosagi. But then for Tsurara's character, she's an aspiring prosecutor, and she has a really strong sense of justice, and there's definitely this antagonistic element to their relationship as well. So it's not your typical enemies to lovers trope, but it's basically just this entire thing with their convictions that definitely will prevent them later on into the story probably to like really dive deep into the romantic aspect of the narrative. So very interesting to watch out for that. But anyway, so they immediately meet, and later on, it signals that Kurosaki will get entangled into the life of Tsurara even further, because the next case that he's going to handle is that the father of Tsurara gets scammed by another shirosagi named Kasuga. Now, we also get introduced into the other characters, like for example, Katsuragi, who is Kurosaki's fixer, but Kurosaki isn't the only one who comes to Katsuragi for these types of like informations about stuff. Other swindlers also come to Katsuragi in the guise of like him running this sweet shop, but then after hours it becomes this sort of like den where they do like these different exchanges of information. Katsuragi is joined by Hayase Kaidoko, who if you know the past materials, then you would know that she also has like this very pivotal, important role into the narrative that plays into the relationship of Katsuragi with everybody else. But basically, so they are the three people in who always usually get into this like situations where they talk about, you know, who's next, what's happening with this particular case and stuff like that. So there's that. Now, anyways, so Katsuragi provides Kurosaki with information, but the interesting thing about Tsurara's father and the case is that it's very, very similar to how Kurosaki's family or Kurosaki's father was swindled 6 years ago, back when he was 15 years old, which started the entire thing. So the premise is basically that Kasuga's way is he does these like seminars that supposedly would help people, you know, start up their own business, and just this management development type of thing that says that he will help them out with, you know, livelihood, making their own money and stuff like that. But it's basically just getting them and their desires to make money for their family or themselves or anything like that, and playing off those types of emotions and desires to get more money from them and to invest into this thing that he's promising them, the success that he's promising them, by pitching in, you know, these little amounts of being willing to pay for certain things simply because they think that it's gonna pay off later on if ever they get the success that Kasuga is promising them. But little did they know that Kasuga is just basically hiring actors or this production company to play off, you know, these different types of roles to get money from them. So yeah. Now, when Kurosaki was trying to get, you know, details from Tsurara's father, they get into like certain conversations as to the motivations of Tsurara's father, why he did what he did and stuff like that. And obviously the main core of it is a family that, you know, he has to have considerations for his family finances and stuff like that. And of course, that kind of like risk goes into thinking that you will get the return that you invested into this certain thing, and that in the end it will be helpful to your family. But then that triggers sort of like the memories for Kurosaki that shifts shifts between present and past, and we learn more about his backstory through the flashbacks. We see him as a 15-year-old with his father and his mother. Initially, like they're a really happy family. He has a younger sister, and then eventually his parents get into fights because his father is getting into these types of like this very, very similar to Tsurara's father, and then eventually things start crashing down, and Koshiro finds himself at home, like realizing that his father has actually axed his mom and his sister, and that his father also tried to do it to him before actually, you know, doing it to himself. But he survived, and that was his motivation into doing what he's doing. It still isn't revealed how he ended up under Katsuragi's care or how they ended up in that relationship. But if you're familiar in terms of the previous storyline, so then you would know. But if not, then I wouldn't say it first, because I feel like they're gonna reveal it in the later episodes. But basically, after 6 years, Kurosaki in this particular timeline is already 21 years old, but he's already doing these types of jobs in the hopes that he will get to Mikimoto, who is the person who swindled his father. Now, because of like the close similarities of the case, Kurosaki starts to dwindle a little bit. Like there was this part here where he was about to ask Katsuragi if ever if there's a connection, but then he hesitated. But then later on, when he realized what was really going on, he confronted Katsuragi about it and really showed the complicated relationship between the two of them. Because there are parts where it's shown that, they were just talking about particulars of the case and stuff like that, and it seemed very like playful, and they have a civil relationship. But then eventually it also shows that Kurosaki knows exactly what he was doing, and then Katsuragi also knows what he's doing, and they're kind of like playing off each other. But there's also this relationship between the two of them that they just couldn't let go of what they have, because something binds them together. And it's pretty interesting to see all of that play off on screen. There's definitely a lot of nuances in terms of the way that they're interacting. Like for example, Kurosaki, he's just there, he orders something because it's a sweet shop, but then he doesn't really eat anything from Katsuragi, which shows this mistrust that is happening between the relationship. And then eventually Tsurara is very, very active in terms of Kurosaki, of not wanting Kurosaki or his father to like get involved in this situation. She tries a lot to stop her father from getting involved in Kurosaki's plans. But Kurosaki, the main premise of the drama, as Shaw mentioned before in these previous interviews, is that fraud is something that's really hard to prove in terms of police, because most of the cases, basically people do things willingly, and they give their assets willingly to this person who's conning them. And so finding like proof that they've been manipulated and stuff like that, like all of these things are very circumstantial, and that's a reason why he just swindles them back to get the money back, and he also says that the police, like if you go to them, it wouldn't guarantee that you would get your money back. You would just get justice, which is basically like pretty useless, considering like how the impact of the swindling is in your life. So that's basically Kurosaki's philosophy about the entire situation as well. Now, but in the end, he wins, and he confronts the swindler, which he also tricked in a way by, by saying that initially they had this conversation where he made the swindler Kasuga think that he's smart and stuff like that, that he saw already through the lies that Kurosaki was planting. But eventually he revealed in the end that he still has the upper hand. So he tried to swindle him in a way as well, that he was saying that he's doing this business with like overseas, but then the whole putting the fun thing in the country without paying all the different fees and stuff like that. So is there a way to do it? Blah blah blah. Very, very complex stuff. I would leave you to watch the episode if you're interested. But it's basically the whole like how to launder money without necessarily like going through the actual processes and stuff. And they even mentioned Bitcoin, which is quite interesting, because again, this is the series incorporating modern elements into the storyline that in the original manga run around 2006 to 2013, but now again it's fitting into today's setting. And then eventually he confronts him about it and reveals that this is all a con after he gets the money, and that's when the turning point happened, where Kurosaki showed his true self. Now this is probably my favorite part of the series. During the confrontation, Kasuga was taunting Kurosaki, like what they want to do, like do you want to me and stuff like that, and then Kurosaki goes off and he says that as much as I want to do that to you, to Mikimoto, to basically every single shirosagi, I wouldn't do it because I'm not like you guys. He said it in a way that he's saying that these people, even if they're just swindling people for money, the idea that they're taking away these people's lives by doing so and eventually leading them to very, very like literally at the edge of the knife, when it comes to like these types of situations. That was basically what Kurosaki is saying in that particular scene, and you can see the rage in his face as he does that. The flicker of emotions that happen in a particular scene, where there's this certain coldness, there's just certain like building up of anger and rage. It was pretty intense and pretty interesting to watch. And by the end of the episode, it was interesting because they're also making it seem like, Mikimoto is really this big bad, and eventually it would have a nice payoff, hopefully, because Mikimoto was watching and he's aware of what Kurosaki is doing, and he seems pretty, pleased about the entire thing as well. Like, it's all this, it seems like this like game that everybody else is playing. And at the end of the episode, there's also like the confrontation again with Kurosaki and Katsuragi, and as much as rageful as Kurosaki is, he just gives this like smile that doesn't reach his eyes talking to Katsuragi, because again, it shows that there's this relationship between the two of them that's very, very complicated. And then after that, we also get a little bit of like a look to Shiraishi, which is also a key player in the later episodes of the series, if you know, but he's also a shirosagi in a way, but his preferences in terms of the companies that he's choosing to swindle, his motivations are somehow similar to Kurosaki, and that's why the dynamic when they meet is actually pretty interesting moving forward. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that particular episode, but it's quite nice that they already introduced him at the end of the pilot. Another thing, the other character is Kashina. So he's the police officer who's very, very who really wants to get to Kurosaki, and because of him, like it's his motivations is also gonna play a huge part in the development of the narrative later on. So I'm pretty interested how they're gonna develop his character as well, and this relationship that he will have with Kurosaki. So yeah. Now, with all that said, so some of the highlights of this episode definitely Sho's acting. A thing that I'm really, really looking forward to seeing in this particular series is to see how he will put these different emotions into light. So the producers of Kurosagi talked about, they said that Sho was the perfect or the first choice for this particular role, because they think that he can play off extreme emotions in terms of what the role requires. And I do think that the episode, like the pilot episode, really allowed Sho to show that. They also said that because of the scale of these fraud cases that reference a lot of things that happen in real life, they need someone to have that strong influence in entertainment nowadays to attract viewers into watching the series, which I feel like is definitely a huge thing. And I do think that with the pilot episode, Sho proved that he's able to really create this Kurosaki character into something that's really his own. Again, there are big emotional parts in the series, two of which would be the confrontation scene, where you can really see the rage in it that is boiling up inside of him that finally exploded. And the scene in the flashbacks, where we got more of as compared to the previous version. And here you see him, the struggles that he went through being this like innocent kid who just got caught in this situation where he was really helpless and couldn't do anything. I like the nuances in his acting as well, like the sudden shifts in the way that his eyes is moving in certain scenes. Like you actually see that flicker where he shifts from Koshiro to Kurosaki to Kurosagi. Like those moments I think is really good. One of the things is like earlier on into the episode, I was already really impressed at the way that he was like just being really playful, on his phone playing this game and stuff like that. And then once a sweet shop like the moods changed and everything, because they're ready to do their other business other than the sweet shop business. And then Katsuragi's demeanor changed. He's not, the friendly neighbor, sweet shop owner guy, but he's the fixer already. And then with Kurosaki, there's a shift of like being playful, and then just that, and then the face was like blank and cold, and he's this swindler guy already. So I really love that. His dynamic with Tsurara is also pretty interesting because, again, he plays off like these different personas to hide who he really is. And with Tsurara and his clients, he seemed very like cheeky. He has no boundaries. Like, he has no sense of formality in a way, but that allows him to be blunt with them in terms of the situation and stuff like that, and to really show them that this is what's happening to you, that these are the consequences of what you've done, and you sort of like got yourself into the situation, but no worries, we're gonna deal with it anyways. And yeah, like all these elements, I'm really proud that Sho pulled off the role. To be honest, I'm looking forward to more of the episodes. I'm really happy that he finally got this role that I feel like would really show off his versatility as an actor. As for the rest, so I really like Miura-san as Katsuragi, because again, with his face, like, he looks like a friendly grandpa, but like whenever like this like certain like, it's hard to read what exactly is he thinking as well whenever he has these like small confrontation moments with Kurosaki, like, because of how he looks and the way that he delivers his lines. Like, for example, there's this one part where he just says, "So what?" Like something like that. Like, Kurosaki tries to confront him with something, and then he doesn't deny it, and he just looks at him and kind of like says it in a way that, like, "So what?" Like, he's trying to taunt him, challenge him, but in a very calm and very distant kind of way. Love that. I want to see more of Nakamura Yuri as Hayase Kanoko. Like, her in the backdrop of most of Katsuragi and Kurosaki's scenes. I love her a lot in other works. So I'm already pretty pleased that she has the role. I do feel like she's perfect as a Kanoko. She's actually one of my fan casts back then when they still haven't announced the roles. But then for Kanoko, like, I do feel like, again, she would provide that kind of like edge that the character would also have in terms of the dynamic of Katsuragi with the other characters. Kashina, I like Inoaki Kai's performance. With Kashina, I'm just pretty excited because there's something about it that, he has this like weird thing going on with him where like, I feel like there's something about when you see his character and the way that he's trying to look into this Kurosagi case that like kind of like teases something about his character. I'm not sure if I'm the only one who felt that, but I definitely felt that in his character. Like, there's just something about him that's very like this eagerness whenever he delivers his lines, or the way that his eyes move whenever Kurosaki is being discussed. I'm really looking forward to that as well, because he's also very important in this entire narrative, and I'm really looking forward as to how they're gonna do that. I'm looking at it as this like Javert Valjean type of dynamic, if you will, and I hope that they really play off that kind of like cat and mouse vibe later on into the story. Other things, I think that Yajiro Bando as Mikimoto is very, very effective. Like, he has this like an apologetic vibe to him that's very villainous, and every time I see him on screen, he just makes my skin crawl. Like, after this thing with him in Kurosaki, like young Kurosaki, I don't know, there's just something about the way that he, like, his entire vibe. I'm just looking forward to how they're gonna do like the confrontation between Kurosaki and Mikimoto eventually into the story, because of the vibes that he gave me in this pilot. And yeah, like, I think overall I'm pretty pleased. With Kuroshima Yuina, she definitely embodies that kind of like, no, these are my convictions. I'm willing to fight for them, etc. I'm looking forward as to how their relationship would shift and how Yuina is gonna play it off, because right now, like, I think she's capturing the annoyed part when it comes to, you know, every time she sees Kurosaki. What I'm looking forward to is how that's gonna shift when she learns more about him and his story and his motivations, you know, because what Kurosaki did for this one is he did the whole, like, he used the whole, I know a friend who also got swindled in this particular situation when in fact he was talking about himself. And India, like, I'm just really excited to like how the series is gonna progress. But most importantly, I think the main highlight for me is definitely Sho's acting and how he's able to finally, like, really show a wider range of emotions in this one, and to be able to, like, hopefully capture audiences, not just fans of him who know him from his other works as well as who know him from Kimpori, but people who are looking for a crime suspense watch, are probably fans of the previous works, and just give this version a chance, because I do feel like it's definitely a well fleshed out version of the manga, as well as, you know, just the story in general, and just creating these characters and creating this world and making it come to light, like the story of it, you know, the sense of realism to it, while still making it exciting in this outlandish kind of way. So yeah. Now, with that said, so tell me down in comments below, have you seen the pilot? Any things about the pilot that you liked, didn't like, etc. So let's talk about that in comments below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel and you would want to hear more from me, please hit subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon in a new video. Bye!